You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how we doing? It is Friday night, underneath them Friday night lights, getting ready for the bet set snap. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. Happy to be on again. Touch of a bit later start, but that's all right. Had some family things that needed to take place and be attended to, which was all good. But now we get to wrap up the night and sit here with you and go through this game that everybody loves.
Absolutely. And it should be an interesting slate of games here, right? Like there's some good matchups. There's some fun and intriguing things from a fantasy perspective, a whole lot of how am I going to navigate this week? Because there is certainly a lot of that also taking place, right? Between Mageddon, between seemingly a ton of top-end talent just banged up as well. So I'm sure folks will have a lot of questions coming in here, and we'll see if this if this kind of week leading up here is more trick than treat, or more treat than trick when it's setting, all set and ready to go here as we start rocking and rolling into that kind of Halloween week side of things. But any news notes that you want to hit up here before we start diving into it?
Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy are both out again, right? Taking more options away from a team that was playing this week. You're missing Christian Kirk and Nico Collins from the Texans. Again, taking more wide receivers out of the mix on this Mageddon week, where you're having a lot of, top, one first or second round talent wide receivers, right? That we took with the first or second picks, and in some cases, the first and second picks. And, now we're navigating without them, but hopefully people got a bit of a lift. Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, Rondé Godson, Kamani Vidal, all had really solid games. Justin Herbert, another solid game, right? If you started your Chargers, you're happy. Addison came through late, right? Got the garbage touchdown. That kind of saved his fantasy performance. Justin Jefferson was, ho-hum. You would have loved to see him be able to get into the end zone on one of those red zone targets, but just didn't happen. So his day was solid, but not great. We're going to see how the rest of this week shakes out, because maybe solid holds up, right? Yeah. It just might be one of those weeks where solid holds up. So that's, kind of it. The Chargers looked much better Thursday night. The Vikings, not so much, right? We kept saying, well, Carson Wentz, and maybe there's a reason that McCarthy's not the starting quarterback. And I think we're going to see McCarthy be the starting quarterback next week. Like, I think we're past the ankle injury. Carson Wentz looks so bad. I know he's dealing with the shoulder issue himself, but it was just not a good performance. So I think my assumption is the Vikings have probably seen enough. And we're going to see McCarthy get back in the saddle here, and hopefully his time away has done him a little bit of good, and he can keep the momentum going, at least with the pass catchers, right? Like, we need Jefferson. A lot of people need Addison right now to still be relevant fantasy assets, especially JJ, right? Drafted him in the first round. You need your points of him. So we'll see how that shakes up. Other than that, no Garrett Wilson. So that'll be interesting, as the Jets don't have anybody to throw to. So that one's going to be a little touch and go.
It'll also be interesting to see what in the world they do at quarterback, right? Like,
yeah, still haven't named their starter, right? It could be right. Justin Fields. It could be Tyrod. Like, they're playing cheeky games now, but that's right. Never a good thing for an NFL head coach when you got to play that game. So,
well, and especially with some of the comments that came out of New York earlier this week surrounding the quarterback, and the owner deciding to get in the mix and involved with that. And just it is is interesting to see, you know, some of the thoughts and thought processes that some of these owners decide to try and take.
You think it'd be hard to talk smack after you gave the guy a bag of cash,
Right.
but apparently not. So it is what it is. And Fields has not looked great in the games where he has, really struggled. I don't think Tyrod's necessarily the answer there either. Like this is bad organizational management through and through. And the
The
Jets
Jets
have
jetting.
have consistently shown this. So we'll see how it goes. But you're right, fun slate of games. Like the Sunday night game's intriguing, right? Steelers, Green Bay. The only thing that would make that game better if it was in Lambeau instead of in Pittsburgh, but nevertheless, I still think that'll be a good game. I think there's a lot of questions around the Chicago-Baltimore game, right? Like, are we going to see Lamar Jackson? He's still officially questionable. So are we going to see Lamar Jackson? How do warmups go? Is he able to loosen up enough where he feels like he can go out there and play? And the defense, right? Does Baltimore's defense, did they get healthy enough here over the last couple of weeks and through the bye week that they can start to regain their swagger? Because the Baltimore defense has not looked good here for the first part of the season. A lot to work on there. Potentially a high scoring affair with Denver and the Dallas Cowboys. And generally you wouldn't think that, but Denver just let the Giants kind of throw the ball all over the yard on them.
Right.
You have the league's leading offense coming in with Dak Prescott and company. So, slight edge to Denver from being at home, but Bo Nix hasn't necessarily looked as good as we thought he would here in year 2, right? He's playing really well in really short spurts, but it's taking, in most of these instances, it's taking 2.5, 3 quarters for him to get settled in and for Sean Payton to figure out what he needs to do with this offense to put him in position. So kudos to the Broncos for maintaining their composure and finding ways to win. That's what good teams need to do. But now's the time where they need to figure out how to take the next step, right? And they need to become a better offensive unit and help their defense out a little bit. And this is a week where the offense is going to have to show up because we know Dallas is going to have to put 30 plus points on the board. Can Denver match, keep pace, be better than that? Or is the defense just going to play, take a hockey term, right? Are they going to stand on their head and they're just going to drastically dampen what we've seen out of the Cowboys? Because right now no team's really been able to do that. The Eagles kind of did in the second half of week 1. You could argue that the Bears did. I would argue that the game plan got wrecked when CeeDee Lamb went out, and so that was a large part of their dysfunction. But Dak still got there, and outside of that, you really haven't slowed down the offense. It's been the defense that's been kind of wishy-washy. But what else we got? Giants Philly round 2.
Right.
I'm super interested in this. I really am. Like, did Philly learn from a couple weeks ago? Are they atoning for the really poor performance on national television and kind of do that? Or are the Giants, kind of rebounding off of a loss that they shouldn't have had? Like this is kind of define what the next few weeks for the Giants are going to look like, in my opinion, right? They had a bad beat. They should have won that game against Denver. Are they going to spiral and let it get out of control and it's just going to become a lost season? Or are they going to kind of galvanize and realize, you know what, we can put this together, right? Our record doesn't say we're a good football team, but we can be a really hard out and get better and learn through this process. So we're going to find out how much the Giants really have in them, right? Do they really believe in Dayball, or is this going to be potentially the beginning of the end for the New York Giants season, coming off a bad beat against Denver? So lots of cool storylines. Some are a little dampened because of injuries. The Chiefs Commanders game Monday night dampened because of not having Jaden Daniels, but you get your receivers back. You're getting Debo and Terry McLaurin back. So what's that do for Mariota? He looked really bad in relief of Jaden Daniels last week for the Cowboys, but with a full week of preparing, having your full slate of weapons, what's this do for Washington? Like, are they able to at least put up a fight? Because right now, Kansas City is probably the hottest team in the NFL right now, and they do have their full complement of weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? And that's it'll be interesting to see how they come around on that one. Eagles are without AJ Brown, right? Like another wide receiver not playing in this week. So that's it'll be interesting to see how the Eagles offense responds on that one. And this is an offense that seems to constantly kind of searching for what it's going to actually do every single week. So that'll be an interesting one to see what that one looks like there as well. The Jets and the Bengals. If this is pre Joe Flacco coming in and you were going to have that matchup there, like, could you have any worse offenses to be put out there, right? Like from a defense, special teams, go with either one of them and start that one, and you'll probably be happy, type of thing. But Joe Flacco does seem to have the Bengals kind of turning and heading in the right direction there. So yeah. So it'll be interesting to see that one there as well. I'm trying to think of any other kind of fun storylines or matchups, but I think we'll probably see a couple of blowouts along the way, right? Bills, Panthers, Falcons, Dolphins, Colts and Titans. Certainly the makeups of some just snoozers out there as well. So some really good games and some absolute snoozers on the slate, it looks like, this week.
So here's a couple questions, right? We're gonna get into questions here in a second. I'm gonna start you with a couple. I got two.
All right.
Caleb Williams or Drake May?
Okay.
Because I'm torn on this personally.
Well,
like, I'm leaning Drake May.
I would lean Drake May as well, right? Like, he's just managed to get the job done week in, week out from a fantasy perspective, right? The Browns have a very good defense. And if the Browns are going to stay in a game, it's going to come down to that defense, keeping them close. The Bears, the Ravens have been banged up, but they have gotten much healthier, and they've returned some guys. So that's one of those. I would still lean the Drake May side on that one, but it's probably closer than I'd like to admit.
All right. And then here's the other one. You got to start two of these three. Rome Odunze, Stephon Diggs, and I'm going to throw Devonta Smith in there because that's who I was really hemming and hawing. Now that AJ Brown's out, I feel like Devonta's kind of the smash, but we'll go between the three of them. You got to start two.
So it's Odunze, Devonta Smith, and who was the third?
Diggs.
Diggs. Okay. Man. I think I lean Odunze and Devonta Smith as 1-2, and Diggs is the guy on the outside looking in.
That's how I have it here at the moment.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of got it there. Devonta Smith, right? Like, very well maybe the only guy catching passes in Philadelphia, right? Sprinkle in some Dallas Goedert, sprinkle in Saquon out of the backfield, but this could be a week where we see Devonta Smith pick up 10, 12 targets. I like that kind of volume and what that looks like. Depending upon what this Baltimore team's looking like, that Chicago and Baltimore team that could get into a little bit of a shootout on that one. The Diggs side is not a bad matchup. It's just I like the other two's ceilings a little bit more so than what I'm looking at with Diggs.
Yeah. No, I agree. Take it out and play the matchups. We'll see.
All right. Awesome. Let's go ahead and hit up some of the questions in the chat here, unless there's any other your thoughts we want to explore there real quick.
Nope. Let's go ahead and do that.
Jason, over on YouTube, start 2 wide receiver slots. Shakir, Wandale Robinson, Io Manor, then start 1 flex, one of those wide receivers, or Rico, Pollard, or drop Jets Davis for a Texans wide receiver.
I'd go with Wandell and then Rico. It's where I would be leaning, Jason.
You've got to start 2 of the wide receivers, though.
Start 2, so Wandell and Shakir.
Yeah, I would lean the Shakir side of things as well. That Titans offense is seemingly still trying to find themselves and what that's going to look like. Io Manor started the season off pretty, looking like he was going to kind of take over as the clear cut, kind of guy there. But then you had a little bit of a Calvin Ridley sighting. And then with Calvin Ridley being out, Io Manor really didn't become the guy last week. That was the other rookie that came in, DK, who that could be an interesting stash for some folks out there. But I think Io Manor's got a lot of bust potential on this one. So I would agree. I'd lean with the Shakira, the Wandale side, and then Rico. Start 1 between Nick Chubb, Rico, and DJ Moore. It's got to be Rico until the wheels fall off, right?
I would. That's where I would go. Would be Rico here. I'm really trying to avoid Nick Chubb right now, unless you're absolutely forced to play him. Right, it's definitely in a timeshare with Woody Marks. Hasn't looked overly explosive. They got a tough matchup with San Francisco this week, so both guys might struggle. I feel like he's looked explosive. You got to think eventually the Panthers are going to stop caring about the paycheck and start caring about the abilities on the field. And right now, much like we said earlier, Rico's just playing better than Chuba. Not that it can't flip back, but currently right now, if you're going to truly play the hot hand and the player that gives your team the best chance to win, Rico Dowdle is that guy.
Right. Super efficient and looks explosive out there. So I would agree with the Rico side on that as well. Jason, start 1 between Ertz, Schultz, Andrews, and Ingram. This is the tight end streaming smorgasbord here.
It's going against the Chiefs. Schultz should okay. So I think Schultz has the safest floor because I don't know who else has. Right. I don't know who else the Texans are going to throw the ball to. Their offensive line is trash. Like CJ Stroud has not looked very good. Part of it, I think, is his own doing, but part of it is the dude has no time. 0. Like it very much looks like David Carr all over again, where you drop back and even on a 3-step drop, the defensive end is beating you to the spot in some of these cases. It is just, it's arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL this year. And I don't know that it's that much of an argument. Like I pretty well believe that they're just the worst offensive line. So Schultz should see a lot of targets, which is great, but he's got to be able to catch them. We'll kind of see. Ingram's kind of the wild card, right? The Ingram's the wild card because the matchup against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a team that especially in DFS, if you're targeting players in high scoring games, Evan Ingram's kind of your guy. He's been sitting around between 10.5 and 11.5 points each of the last 3 to 4 weeks. I expect a slight uptick again because this game very well could get into a point total that's anywhere from 57 to 64 for a point total, right? So take that opportunity. So it's Ingram or Schultz for me. Andrews, I'm leaving off. Like, I don't want any part of that until we know that they realize he's a weapon again in Baltimore. So Schultz or Ingram, I am going to lean Evan Ingram because I truly believe the Texans have a problem with putting the ball in the end zone. So Ingram, I think even with only 6 targets, 4 catches, and a touchdown, I think he just barely outscores Dalton Schultz, who might have 12 targets but only 8 catches and probably no touchdown, because I don't think the Texans are going to get in the red zone very often.
Fair enough. I have got Evan Ingram on a couple of rosters, and for the most part, he's staying on the bench this week, right? Like, between those, I would lean the Schultz side of things. I think he does give you the safest floor. I think he also gives you a pretty good ceiling when it's all said and done. Right, with Nico Collins being out, with Christian Kirk being out, I think that you'll see some decent pass flow going into that. Evan Ingram has managed to see the field more than half the snaps one time this season, which was the last game that we saw them out there. But even then, he was at a 56% snap share on that one. Denver is just seemingly utilizing a full-on carousel of tight ends on that one, and it's just kind of comes down to, in order for a guy to get you fantasy points, he's got to be on the field. And at that point, I'm going to take the opportunity for Schultz being on the field far more often than what Evan Ingram's been. So that's kind of where I would lean on that. Any other thoughts?
No, I think that's fair. Right? So a bit of a split decision here. Derek's thinking Schultz, I'm thinking Ingram, but we're both agreeing not Ertz and not Andrews this week.
Right. Ertz would be the last guy on my list, and I would go Andrews just from the standpoint that the potential upside is greater for that one than Zach Ertz, I think. So Jason saying start one Ertz, starting Terry, Mason Taylor or Hunter Henry, start one at flex, any of those tight ends, or Rico or Malik Washington, no Waller or Shepard, or maybe pick up a Texans wide receiver since Nico and Kirk. Your flex is Rico. Play Rico. It's going to pretty much, Jason, if you throw another question out there that has got Rico in the equation, it's going to take something pretty crazy to not be Rico for me. But that's kind of where I'm at there. Thoughts on this one, though?
So if Mason Taylor's healthy, and because he's questionable right now, and he's a pretty big questionable, honestly. If Mason Taylor's playing, I'm going to play Mason Taylor out of this group for the upside. So the Cincinnati Bengals have given up 9 touchdowns to the tight end through 7 weeks. So the opportunity is there. It is a weakness that team has. It's much like in that same aspect of why we start players against against the Cowboys, or in large part the Miami Dolphins, right? Those are just defenses that we've learned to kind of pick on this year. So if Taylor's healthy, I would choose to play Mason Taylor. If Taylor's going to go, I'm probably going to play Henry over Ertz. Again, I just, with Marcus Mariota, Monday Night Football, the Chiefs being so hot, like I probably want to avoid Zach Ertz this week. Even though I do like having a dog in the Monday night game. But I think with already starting Terry, you have that. So I would pivot off of that tough matchup and look at another tough matchup with Henry going against Cleveland. But that way, if things go really bad for the Commanders Monday night, you're not getting stung twice.
Right. I would co-sign on that one, right? It's Taylor if he plays. If not, the pivots to Hunter Henry, and Zach Ertz is a distant desperation play for me this week between those options. So, Ezekiel over on YouTube saying, should I trade Gibbs, Shakir, Tez for Barkley, Judkins, and Olave?
I actually don't hate this. I really don't. Shakir is just one of the guys in Buffalo. Tez is not getting into the end zone. Maybe this week Andy Dalton's able to unlock something with him. Maybe, but Bryce Young has not shown. Yes, he's targeting him, but again, this offense is pretty conservative. He's not getting a whole bunch of red zone looks.
I'm reading that as Tez is in
Tez Johnson. Sorry,
yes.
I was thinking Tetaroa. I'm sorry. Then yes, I even more so like this.
Right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was totally reading that as Tetaroa McMillan. Tez Johnson. Yeah, I'm absolutely doing that.
I would agree. Right. That's kind of a smash.
Barkley's been down. Yeah, we know Barkley's been down.
Judkins is on the come up.
That he stays that down forever, but
right.
Judkins is playing well. He's the best source of offense that Cleveland has right now. Chris Olave's been wonderful this year, and we're starting to see that come through even more so here the last couple weeks. So I think I would do this trade. I'd give away Gibbs, trade Gibbs away for a really solid wide receiver 2 with some wide receiver 1 upside, and however you want to think about it, an RB1 and an RB2 between Judkins and Barkley.
Right.
Both with potential to be 1s, and worst case scenario, both could be 2s. But I like the flexibility that gives you. So I think I would lean the Barkley Judkins side.
Yeah, I would also agree with that, right? Like Gibbs certainly has been on that elite side of the running back side of things. Barkley has not, but Judkins certainly is kind of on that come up, and Olave's been coming up as well. Shakir's a guy that quite frankly you're finding it hard to even put into a flex play week in, week out. And Tez is a guy that was on the waiver wire 2 weeks ago, right? So yeah, in my mind, really, you're trading Gibbs to get Barkley, Judkins, Olave. Right, the other two are just kind of there, in my opinion. So, any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir, not this moment.
All right. Over on YouTube, Michael is asking Pacheco or Woody full point PPR in the flex. Kind of a woof.
It's kind of a woof. I'm giving. I think it's Pacheco by a hair. And I do mean by a hair. Woody Marks is probably going to catch more passes, right? So with the full point PPR, that is the great equalizer. Pacheco, he has not been dynamic. I shouldn't say dynamic. He has not been as dominant in that backfield, right, as we thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season. You've seen Kareem Hunt. He's a little dinged up, but now you're having Brashard Smith kind of get some extra touches and be able to do some different things with the ball and actually run the ball and not him being used as a wide receiver because the Chiefs were light in that position. So I think he kind of eats into that a little bit. Woody's, like I said, splitting it with Chubb. So I'm leaning the team with the better offense, the better offensive line, the greater likelihood to be leading in the third and fourth quarter is the Kansas City Chiefs as opposed to the Houston Texans. And again, the ability to fall into the end zone. I know there's a bunch of playmakers and the touchdowns can get spread around on Kansas City quite a bit, but I think they'll have 5, maybe 6 opportunities that are either knocking on the door or right inside the red zone. Houston will see what 2, right? When they get 2 opportunities inside the red zone, but I don't see it being much more than that. I mean, take your odds 5-2. So I would go Pacheco by a very slim hair, but I think they're going to be pretty close by the time it's all done and over with.
Yeah, I think you're probably within about point and a half when it's all said and done between the two. I'd lean the Pacheco side of things. I think both of these guys don't really give you much in the way of a ceiling when it's all said and done. But I think Pacheco probably has a little bit of the safer floor between the two. And so I will lean that route and go and take take a guy playing in the Monday night game there as well. Give me something to root for there. So Michael chiming in and asking Caleb or pivot to Stroud this week.
Caleb.
Yeah.
Hands down for me, Caleb. I will. There's at least an opportunity for success there with how the Bears are built up. I don't think Stroud's going to be able to do a whole heck of a lot.
No, I would agree with that. So, yeah, and it's really not even close, right? So, Mario asking or saying, "Good evening, fellas. Is Garrett Wilson a trade or hold type of move?"
It depends on what you can get for him.
Right.
Right? I mean, you don't want to take. The problem is right now he's probably at his low point. So you're not going to get as much from him now as you would have a couple weeks ago. So I guess for this week, I'd tell you he's a hold. You need him to have a serviceable game, right? You need him to have a game where he has, 8 or 9 catches on 12 targets for, hopefully 100 plus yards even and a touchdown, right? And then you can try and flip if you don't think that's sustainable. But when he's healthy, he's the only show in town. So you do have a pretty safe floor with Garrett Wilson. The ceiling is capped because the quarterback position is limited. And so if you're looking for more bang for your buck, maybe he's a trade candidate, but I mean, you're looking at like a Chris Olave type. Like, I don't know that you're able to do a whole lot better. A couple weeks ago, someone would probably argue Quentin Johnston. He just put up a goose egg on Thursday night. So that kind of backs out of the way. I don't think you're going to be able to get a Keenan Allen, a Ladd McConkey, maybe a Jordan Addison, but that's a number 2 receiver with potentially a rookie quarterback coming back in to play that. I don't think you want that.
Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I think Michael Pittman's probably pretty fair, right? At least here at the moment. Again, you need Wilson to have a game that justifies his position as a top 15 receiver.
Right.
And then it kind of shakes things up a bit. And it's always hard to go position for position. So if you're looking to flip him, you're getting a running back, you're looking at Warren, right? You're looking at something like that. You're looking at Kenneth Walker. A guy who's splitting carries, and you're just looking at split backfields because I don't think I'd do Garrett Wilson for Javonte Williams right now. I don't think I'd do Garrett Wilson for DeAndre Swift. Like, I'm just trying to think. Maybe J.K. Dobbins. Maybe. As a Dobbins owner, Breece, right? But then as a Dobbins owner, you have your own set of headaches, right? Like, okay, does he continue to hold Harvey off, or is he a piece that I need to move because Harvey's going to be ascending? Like, I have Dobbins in our home league, and he's been very serviceable as my number 2 or flex running back. But that question's always in the back of my head. Like, am I on borrowed time here at the moment?
Right.
So Garrett Wilson's a tough one right now. And so I would tell you for this week, you got to hold, and you're hoping that he's back next week and he can ball out and kind of go from there. So that puts you at least 2 weeks out because he's got a ball before you can move him. Go from there. You might be able to flip him for like a Brian Thomas, maybe. But again, in most cases, you're not going to love what you're getting in return for him right now.
No. But at the same time, I think that Garrett Wilson, even given the circumstances, things like that, I think this is still a guy that rest of the season's a top 24 wide receiver, right? Like it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be pretty ugly on how it comes. But I do think this is a guy that when we look up at the end of the season is finishing top 20 when it comes to the wide receiver range, right? So with that being said, right, like it very much depends on who you're going to move him for, right? Kevin threw out those names there. Some other names, Jalen Waddle could be another guy that could potentially be in that same breath. You're again talking an offense that looks inept. The guy that would be kind of filling in at that number one wide receiver role. Quarterbacks that have not been playing very well. I'd rather take the Garrett Wilson side, right? Zay Flowers would be another guy that could potentially be in that kind of same deal. But you're now talking about an offense that it doesn't necessarily have that super defined wide receiver role and what that kind of looks and plays. And again, I would rather take the Garrett Wilson side of things because when Garrett Wilson is healthy, when that's rocking and rolling there, I think that you're going to ultimately get around 10 targets a game, right? And if nothing else, I want the guy that's going to be getting that kind of volume week in, week out. Running backs are going to be tough, and I think ultimately you're probably trading down in running backs there. So he's a tough guy to value at this point, especially with the injury, especially with what that's kind of looking with, especially with the Jets owner coming out in the media and bashing the quarterback, them deciding that they're going to move on to Tyrod Taylor to then have Tyrod be very questionable on whether or not he even is going to play this game to now we might see the guy that they just spent all week bashing and having that play out, the soap opera play out in the media, potentially be the starting quarterback there, right? Like this is the Jetsing in essence. But at the same time, I think Garrett Wilson is the one piece of that offense that I want. And I don't mind holding on to him, especially because of the way my team most likely is made up. Garrett Wilson is most likely my third wide receiver. So he provides me some wide receiver 2 upside and if not, pretty consistent week in, week out flex play consideration there. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Any other thoughts on the Garrett Wilson side?
No, sir.
Binkin saying sup all. Not much, Binkin. You know how we do it. Just Friday nights doing it up with the bet set snap. Binking asking a Bears 6.5, a plus 6.5 or nah.
Yeah, I like that. Baltimore's got to prove it at this point, right? Like they've been riddled. I mean, outside of the Bills game in week 1, Baltimore has not looked right. They just haven't. They've been dinged up offensively. They haven't been flowing through. Derrick Henry has been more meh than great this season. Yes, they're getting a little bit healthier, but 6.5 is a big number in the NFL. Like we can't forget that. And the Bears are relatively healthy and kind of plugging right along. So I'd take the Bears plus 6.5.
Yeah, I like it.
Maybe you juice it to 7, right? Juice it to 7. Get yourself that half a point if you can. But I like the Bears side this week.
But I like that thought. I'd actually buy it up a full point at that point to go to 7.5. Just, I think that there's a real chance that we're probably going to see this game be honestly probably a 5-point game, I think. But you know what? Sometimes that little bit of margin of error, I like that and rock and roll that. But yeah, I think that this is inside of a touchdown type of game when it's all said and done. And Mario chiming in saying thank you for the take. So guys, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Let's go ahead and keep hitting those up. Saying thanks. I've got a lot riding on that game. Good to hear y'all agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Mario chiming in saying Baltimore has been a non-factor, especially Derrick Henry, which you drafted in round 1. Oof. That's a rougher one, but hopefully you've managed to pull through it on with some other depth pieces and be able to rock and roll it that way. kind of looking at the slate here. Any games, anything that you're kind of looking at from this weekend slate that a little bit of a head scratcher, or any questions kind of going in that you're watching these games, looking to see if you can find some answers for?
I think um I think big head scratchers, what the Bills fix during their bye week, right? Like, a couple bad losses leading into the bye week. So are they able to get right? Like, what have they tweaked a little bit, especially in the passing game, um, to be able to help Josh Allen out? That defense has been giving up, especially outside runs. Um, so their defense needs to get a little bit healthier too. So some questions there. Um, is New England for real? Right? If New England's for real, they have to go into Cleveland or excuse me, they have to win at home against Cleveland. You can't drop that game. Um, but Cleveland's defense is just feisty, right? Miles Garrett, excuse me, is one of those game wrecking type players. And if he starts to, get churning and going, he can absolutely kind of blow up a game plan. So I am curious to see how New England handles that. Drake May being able to go against a defense that's a bit tougher than what he's seen here the past couple weeks. So a lot of questions on the New England side. Um, I think um, there's a billion questions surrounding Philly and the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Giants bounce back? Is Philly going to atone from the loss earlier? Are they able to find some offensive rhythm? Is Saquon Barkley going to get going? Um, that game has a billion questions around it, if you will. I'll tell you another one that no one's quite talking about: Atlanta and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Is Atlanta going to bounce back? Right, off of going on the road and getting beat pretty soundly by the Niners. Are they bouncing back, or are they going to lay another dud like they did against the Carolina Panthers and this Miami team who is basically on life support? Are they going to be able to kind of jolt themselves back a little bit and find some sort of offensive rhythm? Because it's been non-existent. The defense, for whatever reason, that defense I think they have more missed tackles than any other defense in the league at the moment. So a lot of questions on the Miami side too. So like you said at the beginning of the show, it is a good slate. It's just a really good slate for different reasons. Like the paper matchups may not look the greatest, right? There's not a bunch of sexy games, right? Indy and Tennessee. Yeah, everybody expects Indy to kind of run away with it like they did a couple weeks ago. The Houston, San Francisco. It's not a sexy paper matchup. Like you just say that and instantly you just go, well, San Francisco. Well, you're not necessarily wrong, right? But funky things happen when you're on the road, right?
Right.
Like it's just kind of weird. So, um,
Funky things
Tampa.
also happen when you look past the team, because it's on the paper it's we should, do we even have to tee this one up, or can we just move on, right? Like, catch those guys napping, they're all pros.
Yeah, Tampa, New Orleans, right? Tampa's trying to get a stranglehold there in the NFC South, but they're dinged up, right? They're missing a lot of offensive weapons. Is New Orleans able to go in there and catch them napping? So, uh, kind of a fun little game. What's Washington going to be able to show us against Kansas City, or is Kansas City taking their dominant defensive role? I guess right. Last week, I know I said it ad nauseum on Tuesday, but they allowed another professional football team to under 100 total yards in today's NFL. Like that's crazy. So Spagnuolo got this defense kind of tuned up and in true midseason form. Are they going to carry that over against the Commanders team that gets weapons back, but they have a backup quarterback? Or does Washington show us something? Like, hey, we can hang with them, and they kind of force the Chiefs into a shootout. I still think it's Kansas City's advantage even in a shootout, but can Washington be in the conversation, or do they get the brakes beat off of them like the Raiders did?
Right. And kind of going back to that Dolphins matchup there, right? Like this is one where this is Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey have certainly been the fantasy running backs to rock and roll there. This could be a week where we see Bijan try and come back into that conversation. Because this is a Dolphins team, as you mentioned, on kind of that life support. Vidal in week 6 had a great performance against them. Judkins had a good performance and 3 touchdowns against them last week. Like this is one that very well could be a Bijan to the moon type of game here. Like on paper, that is how that's set up to rock and roll. One other one that's intriguing there as well. And this one, thinking through this one out there that is Chase Brown in a get right spot with their matchup against the Jets this week.
I don't know where else he would find a get right spot if it's not this game. Only because opportunity should be galore in the fact that the Jets have no offense. So as the Bengals sit, right, they should be working on a lot of detail work. You feel like you have the personnel and the skill set and just the advantage to put the Jets away. And that's fine. If you want to go out and throw the ball to set up the run, there's nothing wrong with that. But Chase Brown, maybe we've seen a lot of Samaje Perine though. Like Chase Brown's only been on the field for about 58, 59% of the snaps. We were really hoping that number would be closer to 68 to 70%. It's kind of where he did so well last year, was just the sheer volume of plays. But we've seen some more Samaje at this point. So it very well could be, like, again, this Jets team is another team. They're on life support. The only team in the NFL without a win, coming on the road. You potentially just benched your quarterback who you paid a bunch of money to. You have your wide receivers dinged up, Breece Hall's dinged up, Mason Taylor's dinged up, your tight end. Like, where are you going? Like, what options do you have? So I say all that to kind of echo, you're playing with a lead, right? Like you get up by 10 points. And if you're up by 10 against the Jets, it's got to feel like you're up by 3 scores versus anybody else, right? And maybe 3 touchdowns even. Feels like 21-0. So I think Brown's going to get plenty of opportunity. The Jets defense can be sticky at times. But Rico with a full set of work last week, I think he would have done a lot better instead of splitting carries with Chuba Hubbard. But Chuba got the first 6 or 7 touches out of the gate before Rico even got on the field. So I don't think we're going to see anything quite like that. So Chase Brown, we'd love to see 80 yards and a touchdown, right? Like it doesn't have to be another 100-yard performance, because 100 yards on 11 carries is hard to replicate. But if he can see, 14 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown, you feel pretty good about that. Like, okay, we're getting some semblance of a running game, because what that's going to do long term is it's just going to take some pressure off the wide receivers, and it just lets Jamar Chase be even greater than what he already is.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly the opportunity is there. I do like the fact that you brought up the Samaje Perine. This is one of those that Chase Brown really is going to be the one, get the 1-2 work. Third down, Samaje comes in and is on the field for just about every one of those. But Samaje has been, kind of starting to chew into the work on from Chase Brown's perspective, and I wouldn't surprise me if that continues. Like to the point, if I'm looking at DFS and I'm looking for a super cheap contrarian play, I don't mind the Samaje Perine, trying to throw that in a lineup and see what that looks like, because this very well could be one that we see Samaje, get into the end zone and yeah, I like how that can kind of look and work there. But Chase Brown certainly has the matchup to do it. The question is this going to be a deal where Chase Brown actually tries to cement himself in this thing, or is it that he's going to continue seeding work and more work to Samaje Perine? I would lean a little bit more towards the second option, where I think we're going to see a little bit bigger dose of Samaje in this one, and Chase Brown will still come away with the bulk of the carries, bulk of the work, but I do think he's going to continue seeding more and more work to Samaje as the season goes along here. Mario saying, speaking of the Saints, he's surprised that Kamara has been able to stay healthy. So
Yes and no. I mean, Alvin Kamara's relatively been a healthy player his entire career, right? Like he doesn't typically get too dinged up. Some of it's been because of so much passing work, right? He's able to be on the outside right away and then kind of scamper out of bounds. But it's worked for him. You know, I don't know about Alvin, man. Like he should see a little bit more volume. But again, this offensive line isn't great in run blocking. So even with some more volume, I don't think we're really seeing Kamara explode off the screen. Where his value comes in is his ability to catch, 4 or 5 balls a game. And if he's not catching 4 or 5 balls a game, it's always a little suppressed in this New England offense because he's not getting the touchdown opportunities that he had early in his career.
Right. Yeah, that New Orleans offense has been rough, to say the least, on that. Will, over on YouTube, pick 2 between Matthew Golden, Tez Johnson, or Keon Coleman, full point PPR.
Who? Tez and Coleman.
You'd go Tez and Coleman over Matthew Golden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand the Matthew Golden argument. Like, so if you're going to come at me with that, I completely get it. I don't trust this Green Bay passing offense. I don't love the Buffalo passing offense much either, but Keon Coleman,
I'd go with how he has it written on that.
I have a soft spot for Coleman. I don't know. I can't help it. Like I keep waiting for his breakout to show that he's the guy that they drafted early to be their alpha.
Fair enough. It's one of those though that like even though he goes and gets even a lot of these games where he goes and he gets 6 or 7 targets, he manages to turn it into 11 or 20 yards. And it's just hard to try and sign off on that one. On that, right? Tez Johnson has certainly been seeing some pretty good work here over the last couple of weeks. And so I'm gonna ride that hot hand there. Matthew Golden, I'm going to go that side of things. I don't feel great about it, but I think that the big play potential is there more so for Golden than it is for Coleman. So even if Matthew Golden only comes down with 2 or 3 balls, I think that there's a better chance that he can turn that into 50 or 60 yards than Keon Coleman coming down, with 5 or 6 receptions and turning that into 20 or 30 yards. So I would lean the Golden side. The Tez would be my first option. Then I would lean Golden over Coleman. For me, any other thoughts on that one? Okay. Ezekiel over on YouTube. Should I go with the Niners D or Tampa's D this week?
I'm going with the Niners. And in large parts because Nico's out. Christian Kirk is out. So you got 2 rookies, right? You got Jalen Noel and Higgins, right? Yeah, Jaden Higgins. Kind of there fighting for it. Yeah, you have Schultz, but the running game's not been super good. So I would lean the Niners. The Saints haven't turned the ball over a ton, right? They've been sticky, and they haven't necessarily been able to win a lot of these football games. But Rattler's not necessarily what he's not gunslinging it, right? Kind of the old Brett Favre things, like or Jameis Winston, right? Like I'll throw 3 touchdowns, but I'm gonna throw 2 picks. Like, yeah, that's not really Rattler's game, right? Like he's been pretty responsible in keeping hold of the ball. So I think it might give Tampa, you know, a lower ceiling than the Niners. Stroud's gonna have to throw that ball. Like they just don't have running game. Stroud has to throw the ball as good as the Houston defense can be, but I think the Niners will be able to prevail there. Lots of sacks, right? If you get points for sacks, lots of sacks from the Niners.
Yeah, I could go either way on this one. I feel like these two are pretty close to one another. But I think you ended up bringing me around there a little bit that I'll lean on the Niners side as well. But I do think that those two are pretty close when it's all said and done. Binking, in a larger fields, would you consider Justice Hill a pivot off of Henry to gain leverage, or how do y'all see the game script going in that game?
Where Justice Hill, and at least how I see it, right? Where Justice Hill makes his hay is when Baltimore is really down, right? When they're forced to truly abandon the run and they just got to step back and start throwing the ball a little bit more. I don't think the Bears can put Baltimore away in that manner. I think the Bears want to be a bit more balanced. They want to be a bit methodical. We're seeing Swift. He's had a couple good weeks. Madungai showing up. He's, got a more run here the last couple weeks than what he's had earlier. Adunze has been a little down the last couple weeks as well, right? So if you're going to run the ball more, as the Bears have seemingly started to do, it kind of plays right into what the Ravens want. As far as, well, that's fine. We can play the slow and grimy game because we have Derrick Henry. He'll wear you down better than anybody else. So I don't know that I'd play Hill as the pivot off of Henry this week. I think that game's gonna be closer. We talked about earlier, right? Bears to cover the 6.5 means you're a 1-score game, so you're not chasing points as Baltimore. It might be close. Maybe you're, down by 3, up by 4, whatever. But it's kind of in that range of it being a close game. And if that's the case, you're going to use Derrick Henry to continue to wear down the defense. Coming off a bye, also, it wouldn't be surprising if Derrick Henry had 25 touches this week, coming off the bye and feeling pretty healthy. So Justice Hill, not this week for me. Trying to think who I would look at there. You have any other thoughts on that, Derek? Would you agree with that? Or are you seeing that go slightly different?
No, I think you're pretty spot on there, right? Like where Justice Hill is going to have any fantasy relevance is, one, he's got to get into the end zone. I don't see that necessarily happening. And 2, it's got to come from the passing work side of things, right? So where you've seen some Justice Hill relevance, last week was the last time out, certainly was was one of those types of deals where they were down. The Rams just kind of controlled that game. They had to try and fight to come back into it. The Chiefs, when they got up and just kind of salted that one away, they were trying to come back on the Lions for most of that game. Like those are the matchups that you see where he has really kind of put up some things and come to play on that one. And when they're not trailing and they're not in the kind of constant drop back and pass and in the pass mode, it just doesn't play out well for him. So I'm not looking at a pivot on this one. This is one that it wouldn't surprise me that you see Baltimore kind of firmly in the lead the entire game. While yes, I think that this is probably going to be a 4 to 6 point game, right? Like I think that the Bears get inside of that touchdown. I think that this is going to be one of those games where Baltimore is kind of, perpetually in that 3 points to a touchdown ahead type of deal throughout this. And Justice Hill just is not going to really enter the game on this one. So short of him having him getting an off carry to spell Derrick Henry on one of these things, and he breaks one loose and it gets loose for a 60 or 70-yard touchdown run, or a third down swing pass and he breaks one to the house, for a 40, 50-yard touchdown scamper. I just don't see that one happening, and I'm not looking to necessarily pivot off of that. But as far as who I might look to try and play as a pivot or as a leverage type of play, that one's a little bit tougher for me. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
No, I do have a couple thoughts on that one. Tyler Algier.
Oh, yep, I like that one.
Kind of a pivot off of Bijan. We think Tyler Algier is going to have at least a solid game. Going up against the Dolphins, I think another interesting one is RJ Harvey catching passes out of the backfield for the Broncos. If the Cowboys are able to jump out early and take that run game out of play for Denver, you'll see a bit more RJ Harvey on the field to be able to do that. Kenneth Gainwell's an interesting one. For the Steelers, I don't think that game's necessarily going to get out of hand, so they should stay fairly balanced, and he'll see some carries and some passes come his way. And then the last one that I think is interesting is Bashard Smith for the Chiefs. And the fact that we know that he can line up anywhere and kind of being able to play that receiver / running back gadget type role. As well as if you think the Chiefs are going to start really putting it on the Commanders, Bashard Smith will see a lot of that fourth quarter work, like he did last week as well. So, again, game script dependent, as all these guys are. I think Tyler Algier is the safest one. I think he's kind of guaranteed some of those points. Bashard Smith might actually have the most upside, only because the Chiefs blowing out the Commanders with Marcus Mariota as the quarterback doesn't sound unbelievable.
Here's one for you. What about a Brian Robinson Jr. in a leverage type of play?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I'm afraid that Houston's defense is just good enough that I don't think the Niners are blowing them out. I think they can comfortably keep them at arm's length, but I don't think that San Francisco is in a position to blow out anybody offensively. Backup quarterback who's also kind of nicked up. You're down your top receiver. See if George Kittle, gets put in a position that he's not just run blocking, right? Like his 0 for 2 performance last week wasn't necessarily his doing. The Niners just decided, you know what, we're going against the Falcons and we're going to show them that Christian McCaffrey is better than Bijan, blah, 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 right? The talk up narrative. But the Niners game plan was just get the run game fixed. And they did that last week. So, and really even down the stretch, they're up by 17 points and McCaffrey's not leaving the field, so I don't think that's the play that I would look at personally.
Fair enough, and that was kind of my thought, was thinking about that particular matchup where we did see Brian Robinson come in the in that Atlanta game, get almost about 9 carries on that one. But
Isaiah Davis is interesting if Breece Hall's a late scratch. Because you're getting him as that kind of contrarian late play, right, to kind of pivot off of. But again, it's a good matchup. The Jets are a bad team, but going against Cleveland's a good matchup. So if Isaiah Davis sees more of the field for the Jets, that could be kind of a sneaky, low budget play that would help differentiate yourself lineup wise.
I like it. Jordan saying, "Sup, good old boys. Happy Friday." And then Jordan saying that they're in on the Chase Brown. Going back to Bing King's question, this is the week, they say.
I hope so. I got him in a handful of leagues. I need Chase Brown to help show up. So right. I hope so. I haven't sat him yet, even though I kind of want to.
Binking saying, "Wow, getting plus 7.5 now with the Bears."
Take
So,
it.
yep,
Take
I
it.
like Binking more.
I like that one. Nothing's a guarantee, but you got to feel really good about that.
Right. Yeah, beating a team by more than a touchdown gets to be really hard in the NFL. So, Rav 80 over on YouTube. Who to start and flex? Pittman, Dobbs, Jennings, Shepherds, Franklin, Butte, Io Manor, full point PPR, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, good players on IR.
Who to start and a flex?
Well, with
So he
that,
needs 2. So he needs 3, right? 2
right,
wide
needs
receivers and a
3.
flex.
Pittman's a smash.
Yep, I agree. I like Pittman a lot. I like Troy Franklin going up against this Cowboys defense in some format, right? Wide receiver 2, flex, whatever. But I do like him there. And I think Dobbs. Again, Houston secondary is not bad. Now, Stingley's going to be out, so that obviously helps San Francisco a little bit. I think going Dobbs, give me the touchdown upside, right? He is a guy that Jordan Love consistently looks for touchdowns. Doesn't matter whether, in the red zone, at the 5-yard line, just outside the red zone. Like Dobbs he's built that chemistry, and he's sure-handed enough. He's built that rapport. You can trust him in the red zone, and Jordan Love does. So I think I'd go Pittman, Dobbs, and Franklin in the high-scoring affair as kind of that ceiling play.
Yeah, I'm trying to, sitting there trying to find a way to either pivot into a Butte or a Jennings, but every time I keep trying to come up with the argument for that, I can't come up with an argument that I like more so than one that I could make for Pittman, Dobbs, and Franklin as well. So
I think Jennings probably has a higher floor than Troy Franklin, right? So if that's what you're looking for as a floor play, as opposed to Franklin being your ceiling play, right?
Right.
I think Jennings has a better floor. I just, with the way the Cowboys have played defense, like this just seems like a really nice game for Troy Franklin to try and, have, 4 for 85 and a touchdown, right? It'd just be able to kind of break loose on one and get there.
Right.
So again, it's point totals for the game too. There's much higher point total in Dallas and Denver than there is in San Francisco and Houston. So I want to try and slide players in with those high point totals.
Right. Well, and Juwan Jennings, I think, is very much a boom bust this week, right? Like there's a chance he goes out there and he absolutely blows up, gets you 100 yards and a touchdown, right? There's, I think, just as equal of a chance that he goes out there and gets you 2 receptions for 18 yards.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey and Kittle are the 2 Niners I want this week. It's not Jennings or Kendrick Bourne. It's McCaffrey and Kittle this week for me.
I would agree. Binking saying that they asked about Hill because he was thinking of that Ravens rookie running back, but I don't see him in the player pool. I forget his name. Not all the other guy that popped up in preseason. I think probably talking about Mitchell.
Yeah. Keaton Mitchell, is that what it is?
Yeah, it looks like he actually chimed in later on saying that it is Keaton Mitchell. So Keaton Mitchell's a one-touch guy, right? Like it's going to be a similar thing that I was talking about just a moment ago with Hill, that it's going to be a scan, in on a play, and he happens to break one and make a play that way. Not looking. I really don't think there's going to be much volume outside of Derrick Henry when it comes to Baltimore running back room. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I'd agree with that.
All right. And saying that Binking saying that Algier is a tag or a Q tag on that. So
yes, you got to monitor it. Like, he is questionable, but if he's going to be on the field, he'll see his normal workload. And
Potentially
I
more.
think we were talking about on Tuesday, right? Like, I think we're somewhere in that 22 to 25 point mark for Bijan this week, but also somewhere in that 12 to potentially 15 mark for Tyler
Ozier.
Algier. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would agree. I think that's a very good, very good move for that one. So, all righty. Well, guys, if there's any final thoughts out there, any final questions, let's go ahead and get those in the chat and get those rocking and rolling. But while we wait and see if anybody's got any final questions, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Good luck this week, right? This has not been a fun week, right? This has been a grinding week. So I hope that it pays off for everybody. Lots of moving pieces. Definitely be checking those injury reports 90 minutes before kickoff. Make sure your guys are getting in there, whether it's Tyler Algier, Lamar Jackson, kind of anybody else with a questionable designation going into the weekend. But, if you guys need anything, at Good Old Boys FF, wherever you guys consume your social media, give us a shout. We will do our best to get right back to you and help you, at least get you some information, help guide you in a way to make the decision for your game on Sunday. But as always, appreciate everybody tuning in, hanging out with us, and all the questions, comments. We enjoy doing this with you guys.
All righty. We do have one final question coming in here over on Twitch, and we're going to hit that one up here before we go. HQ Moz, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, but saying, who would win? Looks like a trade. Nico Collins or Brian Thomas Jr. in a one-for-one trade. Which person's getting the best player? So who would you rather have rest of the season, Nico Collins or Brian Thomas Jr.?
I would personally rather have Nico.
Yeah, I would agree. It is a little bit like, especially with some of the performances we've seen from BTJ over the last couple of weeks, it has narrowed that gap. Couple that with the fact that Nico is going to miss this week, and right, sometimes those concussions can be a little bit tricky on when guys return, things like that. But at this point, Brian Thomas Jr. is also on bye. So it is one of those that when they, at the end of this week, right, neither one of them are playing. And next week, they're both already past their bye. So you're seeing guys potentially going, the rest of the season without having to, potentially have a week off on that one. But I would still probably lean the Nico Collins side of things. Brian Thomas Jr. just been a little inconsistent, and that Jacksonville offense has been, and let's be honest, neither one of those offenses have been great, but I kind of right there with you. I'd lean on the Nico side. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yes, sir.
All right. Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, that is a pertinent piece of information there. So HQ's over on Twitch saying they also have Travis Hunter, so I'm leaning to take the trade. If
you have Travis Hunter, get out from Brian Thomas and take Nico. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I'd take Nico over Brian Thomas Jr. anyway. So you don't want two of the same pass catchers on a not great offense on your roster. That just leads to not much fun. So yeah, I would diversify your Jacksonville portfolio of wide receivers there. So, all righty. Well, that is, I believe, going to take us down here to the end of it. As Kevin already mentioned, if you have any other questions, concerns, comments that come up over the next little bit, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. We'll do our best to get back with you just as quickly as we can when those are sent through. But that is going to do it for us tonight. Do appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in, all the questions, comments. It is very fun to get to interact with y'all throughout the that. We'll be back again Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. And do us a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe button wherever you're consuming this content at. But that's gonna do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloo.